Family Guy can't always be chuckles and laughs, so in this video, we'll be looking at the darkest, most psychotic things the characters of Family Guy have ever done. Kicking things off with Peter, it's hard to think of a more uncomfortable episode with him than Fresh Air, where he decides to marry his own son so that he can get access to his inheritance.
But you promised we'd go fishing.
Chris, I was just lying to you so you'd go away.
So right from the rip, Peter's doing everything he can to avoid hanging out with Chris. Not exactly the craziest thing Peter's done, but something that will still emotionally scar Chris for years on end nonetheless. Honestly, Chris spending time with Peter will probably do just as much damage, so who's to say which is worse? But this frees up Chris to hang out with Carter more, and his grandpa appreciates it so much that he has one hell of a reward for him.
I have decided to change my will and name my grandson Chris the sole heir to the Pewterschmidt fortune.
I guess when Carter's dead, he won't care if his company just absolutely tanks. But giving all that money to Chris is like arming a gorilla with a machine gun. Give it enough time and people are gonna get hurt. But this essentially means that Peter will no longer have access to the fortune through Lois, which I'm not ruling out is why he was willing to stay with her in the first place.
Well, I don't want it either.
Good, because you're not getting it.
Come on, what are you doing?
Okay, in Peter's defense, I don't think I'd be super chill about losing out on millions of dollars either. They say money can't buy happiness, but having a pet quokka certainly can. And since the zoo has repeatedly told me I can't just take one, I'm gonna need that money.
Anyway, I don't plan on losing out on any of that money. So if you ask me, we gotta start sucking up to Chris right away.
Not the kind of sucking up you might be expecting with the video centered around disturbing moments, but trust me, it still gets pretty bad. So Peter starts finding some nice things to do for Chris, like dressing like him, engaging in his hobbies, and taking care of some small problems for him.
Hey, Chris, you remember that kid you said was bullying you at school? Well, here's his head.
Ah! That's not even him!
Well, if it wasn't him, then why did his head come off so easily? You think someone with a clear conscience could be beheaded with ease? I don't think so. But all these things like being a good parent and being present for your child are really draining Peter, so he hatches a bright idea that'll give him immediate access to the fortune without having to brown-nose Chris.
Chris Griffin, will you marry me?
What?
Okay, so maybe he won't have to brown-nose Chris, but Peter still might have to put his face in places he won't like. Hey, happy son, happy life, as they say. So the happy couple truck off to Vermont, the only state willing to allow this unholy union. This is all weird and uncomfortable and everything, but any excuse you have to start a registry is a shot you gotta take. Let them sneer and disown you. It won't matter because you'll be the one with a brand new KitchenAid.
Don't what me? You know what you did.
Hey, I may be your husband and your dad, but I'm still a man.
Just maybe not necessarily in that order. But once everything is planned and ready to go, Peter actually ends up calling off the wedding, even though Chris was more than happy to go through with it just so he could be closer to his dad. That's cute. He thinks marriage will make their relationship stronger. Just wait until you have a baby. He won't even want to touch you.
It's wrong to take your son to Vermont under false pretenses to try to marry him for his inheritance.
You should have known that.
And believe it or not, this wasn't the only time Peter tried to get a little more intimate with one of his kids than the laws of nature allow. In Airport 07, he sets his sights on Meg for a very weird, stereotypical reason.
Lois, those men showed me the way to an identity I've been searching for my whole life. I am gonna do everything a redneck is supposed to do.
So Peter decides to become a redneck, which is essentially an otaku for Southern American living, which means it might actually be more embarrassing than a regular otaku. And there are a lot of stereotypes that revolve around rednecks. They drive big trucks, sport cowboy boots, and are rather close with their children. Rather uncomfortably close.
Hey, Meg, come here. Have a seat.
Yeah, not too hard to figure out what he's implying. I mean, he kinda just outright says it. Rednecks are not people of subtlety, and according to the show, they aren't people of honor either. Whether these stereotypes hold any truth to them or not, this is still a pretty uncomfortable father and daughter moment. But Peter's so dumb he couldn't pour urine out of a boot with the instructions written on the heel. See, I speak a little redneck.
Which means I am about to do something to you that you will not remember until you're 40.
But when Peter isn't acting as a redneck, he's also committing crimes that should get him locked away in a federal prison. Yeah, we couldn't move on from this episode quite yet without mentioning that Peter nearly causes a plane to crash by knocking the pilots out.
Once we're in the air, we drug the pilots, at which point Quagmire is forced to step in and land the plane safely.
Obviously, that's not what happens, but one thing still remains. Peter put everyone's lives at risk just to make Quagmire look good. Now, if that's not a true friend, then maybe I don't actually want any true friends. And Peter's psychotic tendencies have also led him to physically hurt other members of his family, like when he took out Lois with a leg-breaking baseball slide purely because he was jealous of her in Peter's lost youth.
And the winner is Peter Griffin!
Holy crap, I won!
So Peter wins himself a trip to Fenway Park for a fantasy baseball camp weekend for two, and he decides to take Lois so he wouldn't be shown up by his friends. Let's be real, one of those dogs with 2 wheels for legs could probably show Peter up at baseball.
Well, who's this? We've never had a lady come out for this before.
Oh, no, that's my wife. She's just dropping me off.
But the coach insists that Lois stays. He's either quite progressive-minded, or he's really getting tired of baseball being such a sausage fest. You can only see so many naked men in the showers before your psyche starts to break. But this quickly changes from being a nice gesture to a worthwhile endeavor when Lois proves she's actually great at baseball.
It's a little like tennis. Did you see that, Peter? I'm doing it all.
Well, not all of it. She still needs to learn the intricacies of sunflower seed spitting, pitcher-to-catcher sign language, and mound rushing. Fighting in baseball games should be way more encouraged. If hockey can do it, why not here too?
Who wants to play second?
I will.
Lois, why don't you take second?
So with Lois hogging all the glory and leaving Peter as the certifiably worst player on the team, his jealousy leads him to recklessly barrel into his wife, breaking her leg in the process. Just gotta tell other folks that she accidentally fell down the stairs. Even all these witnesses. You tell them something enough times and they just might start believing it.
Damn it! I think it's broken.
Griffin, what are you, an idiot?
Mostly an Irishman, but I think he's got a little idiot in the blood as well. While this wasn't as psychologically scarring as some of the other moments we just covered, this was still a pretty psychotic display of disregarding Lois's health and safety just because his pride was wounded. But let's move on to Joe, who despite being considered the punching bag of the series, has still proven he's capable of committing some truly heinous acts, like in Halloween on Spooner Street where he takes a prank on Quagmire a little too far.
Wow, that was terrific, Jessica.
It was good for me, too.
I mean, Joe is absolutely in the wrong, but if you're Quagmire, how did you not know what was going on? Did you think you were just getting it on with a buff rugby player who skipped leg day all her life? I guess we shouldn't victim blame because this is truly a shocking moment that can hardly be considered a prank.
I didn't feel anything, but you did.
Happy Halloween!
Imagine pulling off a prank so unsettling, so disturbing that Peter of all people is actually surprised by your actions. That's how you know you've got some serious self-improvement to do.
You guys actually had...
Yeah, I kinda went rogue with that one.
But what's even more shocking is the time Joe tried to set Peter and Lois up to have their body parts harvested in Old World Harm.
Peter, I know what it's like to be in the doghouse, but I think I can help. Why don't you use my mom's condo in Florida?
So Joe offers Peter and Lois a stay in Florida, forgetting to mention that the condo is in a retirement community. It's like staring into a scary window of their future. Who are we kidding? Those two are never gonna have the money to move to Florida. They'll be moving their bed into the living room in a few years.
I'm getting bicep squeezes left and right.
And men keep telling me I look like Greer Garson.
But for the first time in forever, Peter and Lois happen to be the youngest people in the neighborhood, which gets them a lot of admiration and attention. Specifically for their body parts, but not in a normal, degenerate kind of way. Kinda like the way you go and take a gander at all the different cuts of meat at a butcher shop.
They're trying to steal our organs. They want to kill us. Let's go.
Luckily, Peter and Lois manage to escape before any of their body parts can be cut off. In Peter's case, that's not a big deal. Pretty sure diabetes has taken his foot in a few years anyway. But this does suck for the guy who had dibs on Peter's legs.
Did you get the legs? Damn it!
So Joe arranged the whole thing in order to get himself a fancy new pair of legs. Did he really have to use his friends as the ones to be harvested? Isn't that what Airbnb's for? Just get some rando to rent out the condo and then give him the old choppy choppy. This is a pretty shockingly cruel thing for Joe to do, especially because this doesn't deter him, it only means he has to improvise.
Hey bud, how was Florida?
But another character more than capable of doing that kind of stuff herself is Lois, who nearly killed Stewie by drowning him after getting addicted to pills and prescription heroin.
That arm looks broken. We'll have to get you some painkillers.
So after Brian injures himself falling down the stairs, he gets prescribed some pills that help the pain go away. But you gotta replace that pain with something, and the pills give Brian absolute nirvana. He won't be able to write anything as good as Smells Like Teen Spirit, but at least he'll feel like his head's in the clouds. Maybe a bad analogy when talking about Nirvana.
How does it feel?
Hoya.
Where are you going?
Hoya.
Jury's still out on exactly what he's feeling, but Lois is so used to feeling nothing that she decides to try one of those pills herself. What follows next is Lois feeling like she's on Cloud 9, which just so happens to be where Chris Daughtry lives. So that was the home he was referring to in that song.
Would you like to glide around on my head like an air hockey puck?
Forever?
Well, at least until the high wears off. And once it does, Lois can do nothing but chase that feeling, so she starts taking Brian's pills more often. What a lightweight. Those things are meant for a creature half her size, and yet she's acting like she smoked the kind of stuff that made Stevie wonder. That is, until Brian eats the last pill.
Well, there's nothing I love more than my dog Brian, and I'm not gonna take the chance that he doesn't have enough pills just in case.
This leads her to try to buy some narcotics off of high school kids. Which is insane because you know they don't have the good stuff. You're lucky if you end up getting a bag of premium oregano pawned off as the devil's lettuce.
I want pills! Give me pills! Aren't you kids doing drugs under here?
No, we're picking up trash.
The kids are gonna be alright. Total squares, but alright. So Lois turns the house upside down, hoping to find just one last measly pill. She does find one, but recklessly misses her mouth with it and drops it in the toilet. That's what you get for trying to earn some style points while abusing pills.
Oh, damn it, my hand's too big, it won't fit!
But you know whose hand is just the right size? A baby who's about to see all 12 months of his entire life flash right before his eyes. Well, he had a good run. It was all downhill from here anyway.
Ah, damn you!
Come on, you just touched it!
Luckily, Brian steps in before Lois can completely flush Stewie away, but that was still an insanely close call. It's been 25 years now. It's a bit late for her to use the postpartum excuse. But doing this all over a single pill is even worse, and it shows why Lois can absolutely give Peter a run for his money as the worst parent. But sometimes it's not Lois directly trying to kill her kids. Sometimes she's just gently nudging them to do it themselves. This can be seen in how callously she handles Meg's grief in the episode Steroids.
Oh, Meg, sweetheart, why don't you just go downstairs and join the party?
I wasn't invited!
So Meg is upset that Chris has become super popular, but hasn't bothered to use that new social status to make the popular kids be nicer to her. They always tell you not to forget the little people who helped you on your journey to fame. I can't remember who told me that, but I'm sure they're probably pretty chill with being forgotten. A lot more chill than Meg, whose constant self-loathing and crying eventually become too much for Lois to want to handle.
Here's a Sylvia Plath book and a bottle of Ambien. I'm gonna look the other way and whatever happens, happens.
Unfortunately, suggesting a high schooler read is like asking them to ingest poison. Then again, the combination of a depressing book like The Bell Jar and sleeping pills isn't exactly too far off from poison. The idea that Lois may be secretly hoping Meg just finishes herself off is a pretty terrifying thought for a mother to have about her daughter. We definitely disagree with that mindset, but you know, stand up, girl. Where's your backbone? But that isn't the only heinous treatment Lois has given Meg, as she also made out with Meg's boyfriend and was super callous about it in Go Stewie Go.
Has anybody ever told you you're pretty enough to be a movie star, Mrs. Griffin?
Oh my goodness, well, I don't know about that.
So Lois succumbs to one of the weaknesses of dejected middle-aged moms, a kind compliment. Because as we all know, any sort of compliment given to you means that person is super into you. Never mind the fact that the kid barely looks old enough to drive. Lois will take what she can get, and it looks like she wants to get with Meg's boyfriend.
I bet you taste like Mountain Dew and Starburst.
Two things you can consume as a kid, but when you're an adult, it'll just rot you from the inside out. Which is honestly a pretty good metaphor for romantically pursuing a teenager, especially one who's dating your daughter.
Do my gray hairs bother you?
What gray hairs?
Kiss me!
But unfortunately, Lois doesn't pick the best of times to make a move on Meg's boyfriend, leading to her daughter catching them in the act. And what does Lois use as an excuse for this scene? Well, it only seems fitting that it'll be something that'll put justice for victims back a few decades. Because why just hurt your daughter? Take down every woman with you while you're at it. Don't let that Seinfeld guitar riff that follows fool you. This is an insane thing to do in so many ways. And while Lois is apologetic about it later, she still just likes to hang on to the fact that she could have him whenever she wants. Big talk coming from someone who doesn't even want to be touched by a slob like Peter.
You couldn't steal him from me.
Well, I do know a few things, Megan. Clearly, if I wanted him, I could have him.
But Lois has begun experiencing even more psychotic episodes over the years, and they've turned her into a threat to anyone in her life, like the employees of her favorite coffee shop and customer of the week.
It just feels like it should probably be my time.
Well, maybe this'll be your week.
So Lois becomes obsessed with earning customer of the week at her favorite coffee shop, so much so that she's brought to tears when it doesn't happen. I can't wait until I'm old enough that this kind of thing is the worst part of my life. I need more dumb problems in my life rather than threatening to put me out on the streets problems. But after rejection after rejection, Lois decides she needs to find a way to force the staff at the coffee shop to see her as the good person she truly is.
Yes. Hero, I'll be a hero, and then they'll have to make me customer of the week.
And her heroic deed? Triggering one of the barista's peanut allergies and then EpiPenning her to save their life. You know, heroes don't usually create the problem they have to save people from. Did you learn nothing from Syndrome in The Incredibles? So Lois plants a few peanuts in her car, but maybe a few more than she really needed to.
Damn it! I didn't put enough peanuts in there! Oh, shaving cream!
So the plan doesn't work out as well as she intended, plus she's forced to pivot when one of the other coffee shop workers sees that she was the culprit on the security cameras. But remember, Lois is a good person. Sometimes you just have to do some light kidnapping to show how good of a person you really are.
So are you gonna let me go?
Yes, once I figure out this whole kerfuffle.
A kerfuffle of her own design, mind you. All because she didn't get her picture on the wall of a store. If you wanted that so bad, you should have just gotten back into shoplifting. They put pictures of those guys up all the time. But to show her hostage how nice of a person she is, she agrees to go feed his cat, which makes her run into his roommates, which just adds 2 more hostages to the whole mess.
You can't leave us like this, lady.
Yeah, don't say lady. It makes me feel old.
Of course. Wouldn't want the woman with 3 hostages and 1 attempted manslaughter under her belt to feel uncomfortable. Things just continuously get bad for others, and it's all because Lois was having one of her episodes. Very entertaining episodes for us, but for everyone else, they're instilled with a deep fear of Karens that'll be quite hard to get over. But a character who, to be perfectly honest, has more or less been a pretty good boy on Family Guy is Cleveland, as he doesn't really partake in a lot of the disturbing moments like the rest of his neighbors. This was kinda true over on the Cleveland show as well, but he did do some bad stuff like pretending to be homeless to get free food in the episode 'Tis the Cleveland to Be Sorry.
Hey, those sandwiches were donated by the finest restaurants in town. They're for the homeless.
So as soon as Cleveland gets a taste of these donated sandwiches, he realizes that maybe being homeless isn't the worst thing in the world. Yeah, he comes to that conclusion over a sandwich. Didn't this guy own a deli? You telling me he doesn't know how to make a decent sandwich at home? Regardless, Cleveland decides to start taking food meant for the homeless and does such a good job at appearing unhoused that the other homeless people feel inclined to give them their food.
Here, take mine. Looks like you haven't had a good meal in days.
Donna isn't here, so Cleveland can pretty confidently say yes. Quietly, though. You never know where she might be lurking. But Cleveland's constant presence at the soup kitchen actually earns him the pity of the other folks eating there, so much so that they agree to band together and help lift Cleveland out of his predicament.
Take whatever you want. It's free.
No need to tell him twice. You didn't even have to tell him one time. He was more than happy to take from the homeless without being asked. But of course, this only lasts for so long before Donna catches him cosplaying as a homeless person.
Cleveland, you pretended to be homeless?
Yes, but I've continued to wash down there.
Buddy, you'll be lucky if your downstairs parts end up anywhere but the meat grinder after this. So yeah, this looks like Sunday school compared to some of the actions of the others, but taking food meant for the homeless during Christmas time is still a pretty messed up thing to do. And believe it or not, Chris somehow turned out to be one of the least psychotic members of the Griffin family, but that doesn't mean he's without his uncomfortably dark moments. For instance, when he found out that Meg was a foot model, he took a concerning amount of time to inform his parents about it.
All right, finished the chapter. Time to reward myself with a slow, relaxing yank.
So Chris is doing pretty much what he does when he has 5 minutes alone to himself. Happy he has a hobby, I'm just not happy I have to keep hearing about it. But when he decides that feet pics are on the menu for the day, he spots a familiar looking birthmark that leads him to a shocking conclusion.
Oh my god! Mom! Dad! Meg is doing foot.
Can't let his priorities get jumbled just because his sister is selling pictures of herself. Then again, based on how that transition was set up, are we supposed to believe Chris took 15 minutes with Meg's feet pics? Gonna try not to think about it too hard. I came into this script with some modicum of respect for Chris, and it's slowly draining by the minute. And while Peter is obviously the bigger degenerate in the episode Fresh Air, Chris does have a few moments of disturbing implications with his relationship with the rest of the family.
And the worst part about it is I can't have God, I wish there was a way I could just do it myself.
So Carter's bedridden with a leg injury, just wishing there was a way he could pleasure himself while he's all casted up. He's saying this to his grandson, by the way. The Griffins are freaks, but it's only because their freakiness has apparently been passed down from generation to generation. But Carter's speaking to the Sultan of self-satisfaction, who might just be able to show his grandfather a thing or two that could help him.
You can do it basically whenever you're not doing something else.
Cool! Hey, next time I want to try it with my hand.
Yeah, this whole bloodline needed to be sawed off the family tree like 2 decades ago. Chris continues to consistently have some of the weirdest relationships with his family members. If you think this brand of weirdness was just a one-off thing, you'll be saddened to hear it might be something he has on a schedule with others.
Chris, our bath is ready.
I don't know what to do now.
Yeah, me neither. Is it possible to bleach the entire planet? I think that's the only way we can erase this realization from all of our collective minds. And it probably comes as no surprise that Meg can be one of the most unhinged members of the family and is capable of doing shocking things, like almost going through with drugging her brother so that her crush can sleep with him in Friends Without Benefits.
I think you're great and I love hanging out with you, but there's something you should know. I'm gay.
So Meg learns her latest crush isn't into girls, which, you know, is fine and dandy, but does he have to be attracted to someone else in Meg's family? That's just rubbing it in, especially when Meg is sometimes in the running for being the manliest one out of the whole clan.
Yeah, the person I'm attracted to is your brother.
It's Chris, we should clarify. It's important to know that Kent is just a heartbreaker and not a creep attracted to a baby. He just killed the dreams of Meg and Stewie all in one go. So Meg acts like she can just be friends with Kent, but she just can't keep from forcing herself onto him and trying to turn him straight.
Hook up with me! Come on! We can make this work! Just stick your head in here and pretend it's a butt!
It would probably have the same smell, but it's just not the same thing. So Meg's a weirdo for even suggesting he can just be conditioned into liking her, but she goes into full-blown psycho territory when her friends give her an idea on how she could know what it feels like to be with him.
Well, if Kent hooks up with your brother, you could just have Chris describe every last detail to you.
Thank you for that uncomfortable thought, Ruth. I see you're all friends not just because you're losers, but because you all have sick thoughts better left on a 4chan board. But this sounds great to Meg, who tries to get Chris to somehow agree to go through with it.
Forget it, Meg. I can't just do stuff with another guy. I'm not Derek Jeter. I like girls.
Chris is an absolute freak, but the guy does have a line with how far he'll actually go. Gotta respect the man's kinks. But this isn't good enough for Meg, who comes very close to giving Chris a sleeping pill-laced batch of Kool-Aid, though she backs out of it at the last minute. She just forgets to tell Kent that the plan is off, which I'm sure everyone is probably cool with.
I lied when I told you that Chris wanted to sleep with you.
Save it, Meg. I don't need your apologies. I can see now that you're a complete psycho.
Can't believe it took him this long to figure that one out. Anyone comparing their chest to a butt is probably due for at least 1 or 2 mental health checkups. But it's clear that when Meg likes a boy, it sends her spiraling into a deeply disturbing psychosis, which is exactly what happens when she falls for Joe in The Hand That Rocks the Wheelchair.
Oh, thanks, Meg. I really appreciate you helping me out these past couple of days.
So Meg's helping Joe out around the house while Bonnie's gone, and the little bit of kindness Joe shows Meg really seems to affect her. That was his first mistake. Can't be doing any of that with Meg. You gotta be cold, distant, and not hold prolonged eye contact with her. Now I know why Peter tries to be as mean to her as possible.
Yeah, that's my boyfriend.
So Meg decides to run a mile with the kindness Joe has shown her, deciding to dress in Bonnie's clothes and do more wifely duties around the house. It probably would be refreshing to have a woman in the house who isn't patiently waiting on Joe's death, and yet, this may just be too weird for Joe to enjoy.
She just called me Joe. That's kinda weird. But I'll just let it slide. She's got nothing going on.
But this little experiment in playing house for Meg will have to end soon, since Bonnie will be back in a day. Can't have that now, can we? I'm sure there are lots of girls out there who will do a lot for a man, but are there any who will drive across state lines just to plant a gun in the bag of their wife so she goes to jail? If there are, please DM me. I think I could fix you.
Ma'am, this bag contains a concealed weapon. I'm gonna have to place you under arrest.
So now that Bonnie's out of the way, Meg is freed up to worm her way into convincing Joe that he'd be happier with Meg. They're already arguing like an old married couple, so I'd say they're just about halfway there.
We haven't made love in 2 weeks.
You haven't made love ever.
Oh, so that was just romanceless, hypothetical, all in the mind bumping and grinding to you, Joe? Geez, you're not exactly acting like a guy who wants to be with an obsessive, psychotic teenage girl. I thought obsession taught us that's all every guy wanted. But after Meg starts breastfeeding Susie, Joe feels it's time to back out before a homicide happens. He goes to Lois, who convinces Meg that they'd never work out because they have nothing in common. Well, there's an easy fix for that.
Meg, what the hell did you do?
I made us the same, Joe. We're exactly alike, you and I.
Really rolling the dice on that little stunt, considering she could have completely paralyzed herself. Then Joe would have really understood Bonnie for the first time and gotten out of there. Luckily, she comes out okay and back to her senses, but still, this girl has got to stop letting a single compliment determine her entire romantic life. If that were how life worked, I would have already been married to every Moe's worker who shouted welcome to me. But when pushed too far, Meg can be far more dangerous to everyone than before, like when she returned from prison as a hardened thug and dial Meg for murder.
I'm home. You're all my now.
Okay.
So Meg returns home with a bandana, tattoos, and a no-nonsense attitude that leaves little room for joking around. It's terrifying to see, but I can't say I'm completely disagreeing with her methods. Maybe I just love a woman who can beat up her dad.
Now who's the funniest?
I know my way around a joke.
Meg's return pretty much has everyone sleeping with one eye open, never knowing where her anger and rage might take her. This is just what you have to do to survive prison. Get someone else before they get you. And since home life was filled with nothing but getting got for Meg, she has a lot of payback to follow up on.
What are you doing with that loofah?
Don't worry about it.
Ah! You told me not to worry about it!
Okay, well that's a bit extreme, even considering the abuse Meg has suffered from Peter over the years. But it's not just the family who's unsafe, as anyone who has ever wronged Meg runs the risk of facing her wrath. Can't say the popular crowd didn't have it coming. At least they get beaten in a very environmentally friendly sort of way. Alright, obviously there were a ton of built-up tense emotions while she was in the slammer. I guess they just kiss a lot in there? That doesn't sound so bad. It's like it's one big sleepover. So now the entire world is practically walking on eggshells around Meg, as any one thing could set her off. It's terrifying to watch, but there's also a bit of catharsis to all this. I think we're gonna have to consider this a girl boss win, disturbing as it may be.
You fatso, punch your baby in the face.
I did good, Meg.
Shut up.
And of course, Quagmire's no saint. Heck, most of Quagmire's darkest and most messed up moments would probably get us kicked off of YouTube. But there's still a few messed up ones we can talk about, like his first comment on Susie Swanson when she was born in Ocean's 3.5.
It's hard to believe she's already 18.
Now, is this Quagmire just having a meta comment on the fact that Bonnie was pregnant for years, or is he already making his move on her before she's even able to open her eyes? We're gonna have to assume the latter, because this isn't the only time he's commented on being attracted to a baby, and it probably won't be the last. We are supposed to like this guy, right? But a just as terrifying moment of Quagmire's depravity comes from the episode Quagmire's Quagmire, where his new, equally degenerate girlfriend has a proposition for their next kinky night together.
I want you to have sex with your father.
What?
Yep, and I'm gonna watch.
Okay, yeah, I think the show has finally found the limit of what Quagmire's willing to do. But the only thing that seems to make this disgusting act even more gross is the fact that Ida's seemingly okay with it? I know the Quagmire bloodline is nothing if not promiscuous, but surely there has to be a line with this stuff. And judging by Quagmire's reactions, there's no way in hell he's gonna go through with it, right?
My dad's pregnant with my kid.
Yeah, who else but Quagmire? Was really hoping it would be anyone else, but that's not how the song goes. And despite trying to appear as the most level-headed and empathetic of the family, Brian is more than capable of committing some truly heinous crimes, like when he let a mother and child drown to death in American Gigolo.
Somebody help me! I'm sinking!
Hurry! I can't hold it!
So Brian first attempts to do the right thing when he sees a woman crash her car into a lake. Attempts is the key word here. Why are you trying to pull the car out of the water by the bumper with your hands? If this was your attempt to show off the fact that you've been hit in the gym, I would consider this a colossal failure. But as soon as Brian discovers this woman has a child, his priorities quickly change.
Let me just unstrap my baby!
Oh, slipping, sorry.
Does this make Brian a serial baby hater, or did he just think it makes the woman who is definitely going to marry him after this seem less appealing? Doesn't really matter because the mother and child are still most likely dead, all because Brian didn't see a suitable reward for himself at the end of the tunnel. But while Brian's inconsideration doesn't always lead to death, it can lead to disgusting health problems, like when he knowingly gave Stewie and Chris herpes and Herpy the Love Sore.
There you go. We're blood brothers now. You happy?
Actually, yes. I mean, I really feel the bond, Brian.
So after Brian and Stewie swap blood with a firm handshake, Stewie wakes up in the morning covered in pus-filled lip sores. Now everybody's gonna think Stewie had a one-night stand with a dog, which, you know, isn't something he'd be totally opposed to, but this exchange gave him all the bad stuff and none of the good stuff.
When we swapped blood, look at my lip! It's a disgusting herpes sore!
But that's the thing with herpes. Sometimes you can have it and pass it along without even knowing it. Sometimes symptoms don't even flare up in a person. Brian is not that person. Not only did he know he had herpes, but he also knew he might give it to Stewie when they swapped blood. And I think the guy should be charged with biological warfare.
You knew you had herpes and you still agreed to swap blood with me! Look, relax, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah, Stewie can just hide it under all his fur like Brian does. Brian reaffirms that this lifelong, gross disease isn't so bad, but unfortunately the rest of the world doesn't agree with him, as Stewie pretty much turns into a leper at school because of this.
Oh my god! Your mouth looks like the underside of a boat!
That's not so bad. That's what my first place after college looked like. But at least Stewie finds solidarity in the fact that he's not the only victim of Brian's carelessness, as Chris has also become afflicted with Brian's disease. Okay, one person in the family gets herpes from the dog and we can consider it an accident. 2 people get it and people are going to start asking questions about just how much bodily fluids are being swapped with the family and the dog.
He knew he had herpes and he didn't say anything. Maybe he was mad I gave him fleas. I don't know.
So not only is Brian a liar, but he's also a 2-timing hussy who apparently is just going around becoming blood brothers with everyone. I'm surprised some new disease hasn't been birthed from all this blood mixing. And it's not until Brian is publicly shamed by Stewie and Chris that he decides to apologize, meaning Brian is going to try to get away with anything until it starts to negatively affect him. And this wasn't the only time Brian's negligence severely harmed Stewie, as he stayed quiet about Stewie's neglectful daycare teacher so he could date her and be careful what you fish for, while also physically abusing him to keep him quiet.
Is it normal that Miss Emily tied us all to the sink while she went out to return a birthday present?
No, that's not normal at all.
So Brian decides to check in on Stewie's seemingly evil daycare teacher who leaves the kids in squalor while she's doing who knows what. But there's a factor that Brian never considered. She's hot. Pretty privilege really does let you get away with so many crimes against humanity.
I should probably go back in there, see how everyone's doing, I guess.
Ah, they're fine.
Yeah, that kid with a knife wound can just pack that thing up with Play-Doh. So despite Brian being very aware of the conditions this daycare is in, he decides to give her a pass in the off chance the two might be able to date. I hope you two are ready to make a new baby for everyone that ends up dying in this hellhole. The scales must be balanced.
She's doing her best, you know? She's got a lot on her plate. She's got school, she's got work.
This is her work!
Yeah, but this isn't what she really wants to do. She's got her eyes on brighter aspirations. Look, if a cashier can be on their phone now, a daycare worker can let a few kids wander into the street from time to time.
Let me just put these bags away and throw some saltines in the yard for the kids.
You're disgusting.
But the whole operation looks to be blown when Stewie returns home with his arm completely dislocated from the socket. If Lois sees that, it's game over for Miss Emily's daycare, and Brian can't have her shipped off to prison, at least until he's been given the opportunity to sniff her hair. Luckily, arms are easy to fix. You kinda just have to thrash them around until they go back where they're supposed to. Who needs modern medicine when you've got modern stupidity?
Mom! We're in here, Lois. He's napping. Relax, I'm gonna pop it back in.
Now, normally Stewie wouldn't mind having his mouth gagged under regular circumstances, but all of this is just too crummy. The only thing that makes Brian finally have a conscience, if you can call it that, is finding out that Miss Emily has a boyfriend. This'll teach her to only slightly lead a guy on, and I guess mistreat children also, to a lesser extent.
There is a special place in hell for people like you.
But you probably aren't shocked to find that Stewie has been behind some truly heinous and disturbing acts. For instance, he collaborated with his crush Penelope to sow absolute chaos across the globe in Mr. and Mrs. Stewie.
Do you actually use these?
Only when fear, spite, jealousy, and revenge demand.
So Stewie meets a little girl who appears to be just as deranged as he is, potentially even more. She's so devious that she actually gets Stewie back into the habit of causing wanton destruction for the fun of it. Isn't it always fun to revisit a hobby you had years ago and find that it's still pretty enjoyable?
Alright, I made a wallet bomb and I planted it on Mort. As soon as he opens it, boom!
Probably should have picked someone a little less frugal. Maybe Mort's just really into using Apple Pay because the guy does not open his wallet as much as you'd think. Luckily, Stewie has a backup bomb that explodes whenever Mort burps into his hand.
Oh, I better make sure my wallet's okay.
Impeccable work. But the two terror toddlers don't just keep their havoc confined to Quahog. Their destruction goes global, targeting various cities, countries, and nations. It would honestly be quite the romantic kindling if it weren't for the millions of deaths. But what relationship doesn't come with a little bloodshed? None that I'm aware of.
We blew up the Great Wall of China, bombed the Eiffel Tower, and look at this note I sent off. Dear Pakistan, up yours.
And Stewie doesn't seem to be showing any hesitance in following Penelope's plans, gleefully coming up with creative ways to destroy entire civilizations. Hey, at least he's putting a little artistic flair into the whole thing. Those people should at least be grateful they're being taken out in such a stylish way.
I have to destroy Copenhagen with a tidal wave, and the theme is the Roaring Twenties.
And Stewie only really stops when Penelope asks him to kill Brian for her. I guess senseless violence is fine as long as it doesn't hit too close to home. Stewie has become one of the more level-headed characters on the show in recent years, but never forget that a little murderous psycho still dwells inside him. All he needs is a little coaxing. And guys really will do anything for a girl, as long as it doesn't require going to therapy.
I'm gonna tell my friends I banged her.
But sometimes the death of one person manages to be even more unnerving than the death of many, and you can kind of see that in how Stewie dresses down and leaves his therapist to die and send in Stewie, please.
I don't want to be like any other person! Like you skiing
Please, don't pick up that photo.
So the entire episode revolves around Stewie's therapist trying to get to the root of his anger and sadness, learning that he has trouble fitting in because of his intelligence, putting up a front as a defense mechanism. I don't think I've ever seen someone shield be a fake British accent, but hey, do what you gotta do to get through life. Then again, talking like a Brit in front of an actual Brit should make you feel at least a little embarrassed.
Now, let's talk about...
Of course, no one can know about this facade Stewie lives, and that includes his therapist. So rather than giving the man his heart medication, Stewie opts to just let him die in his chair. What makes it really messed up is just how nonchalant Stewie is about it.
Is this because I made you wait?
It's because I can't have anyone know the real me. And so you must die.
I mean, it's not like the guy's gonna be airing your dirty laundry on social media or something. A guy his age would only know how to post poor quality, low-angled selfies to Facebook and nothing else. But even while he tries to spend his last moments pouring out his heart about the love he has for his husband, Stewie still tries to undercut his moment. Clearly, this is more of an inconvenience for Stewie than it is for the therapist.
Macbeth?
Romeo and Juliet. But I wouldn't expect you to know.
And Stewie can even be ruthlessly heartless to his friends and family as well, evident by a deleted scene from Hannah Banana where he decides to torture and kill Brian's siblings.
Recognize him, Brian?
No.
It's your brother. I found him for you, buddy.
So Stewie wants to go to the Hannah Montana concert, but when he's unable to get tickets, he tries to persuade Brian to help him get into the concert. And when the dog refuses, well, let's just hope Brian wasn't super close with his other siblings.
What's that big thing around his neck?
Oh, I'll show you.
These Disney kids are nuts, man. I thought they just became that when they evolved into Disney adults, but apparently they're just like this from the jump. And that dog got off easy, as all of Brian's siblings are about to be tortured to death in various heinous ways unless Brian agrees to help Stewie.
Then you are gonna help me find a way to get in.
Okay, I'll help you.
Excellent.
Brian's future family reunions are going to be pretty awkward now. Imagine explaining that your brother got his head exploded over some Hannah Montana tickets. If it was Taylor Swift, I could understand, but I'd have to assume a Disney artist is not worth having to clean brain matter off of the walls. And that's our list. What's the most disturbing thing you've seen a character do on the show? Let us know down in the comments, and be sure to leave a like and hit the subscribe button if you enjoyed the video.